Hello everyone and welcome to BrickCats. My channel is for anyone who enjoys custom LEGO creations, likes saving money, and or those looking to get into custom building. If you're a fan of my channel or are interested in supporting what I do, please consider liking this review, subscribing, or leaving a comment. Each like, subscription, and comment helps others find my channel, and I greatly appreciate your support. Today I'm reviewing the ATAP Walker designed by Bousker and distributed by BrickVault. If you're interested in building this or any other BrickVault model, you can take 15% off the cost of your order by using my discount code CATS15. This is an amazing way to take the bite out of the price of the instructions. Without any substitutions, I was getting 6 stores and $180 without shipping and tax, or about $235 with shipping and tax. In my reviews, I offer my opinions on aesthetics and model features, parts issues you might want to look out for, the build experience, the model's integrity, and I close out with my overall impression and pricing information in the conclusion. If you're watching this review, I assume you bought the instructions or are interested in buying them. I also assume a basic level of familiarity with Bricklink's ordering system and LEGO nomenclature. I only use genuine LEGO bricks and I always purchase the instructions. Finally, I create these reviews for my own personal enjoyment and in the hopes that my advice will make your experience more enjoyable and or less expensive. Bousker's ATAP measures approximately 14.5 inches long, 9 inches wide, and 10.5 inches tall. The height can vary a bit depending on how you post the legs, but not by much. The ATAP's main feature, of course, is the mass driver cannon, represented here with a palm trunk at the muzzle and a total length of about 9 inches from its connection point. I'm not sure what range of motion this weapon is supposed to have, but if you build it per the instructions, it can move from side to side. There's a fairly easy modification to make it move up and down, which I think would be more logical, but I assume the designer didn't want it to get in the way of the heavy laser cannon turret on the top. The main body section of the Walker is very similar to the ATTEs, with the differences mainly due to the weapon loadouts. There's some detailing on the front armor sections as well as the anti-personnel blaster underneath. This little area represents a viewport akin to what we see on the AT-AT, while I believe the other side this is supposed to be an access hatch. These two sand green 35787 triangular tile elements didn't come in olive when this model came out, but they have since been released in the 2025 Neuschwanstein Kessel and Van Gogh Sunflower sets. The top turret rotates 360 degrees, there's no other degrees of freedom here, and it's got the integrated seat for the gunner. Just an interesting bit I found in my research, apparently this is a heavy laser cannon. It's the exact same construction as the one on Bousker's ATTE, but on the ATTE it's a mass driver. The top of the vehicle lifts off to reveal the interior, which has 2 seats for a driver and a gunner. The top sits on these 2 Technic axles here, and they're easy to lift and replace. Around back we have this little section that I assume is for cargo and maybe engine maintenance, along with some more mechanical or cooling detailing. The legs are the other dominant visual feature of the ATAP, and the legs on this model are impressive both for their accuracy and their functionality. The main leg has the correct split on the upper section, and while the lower section is also supposed to be split, that would definitely cause structural weakness in the place where you can't afford it on this model. The feet of the main legs are suitably large. The 5x5 round brick here doesn't come yet in dark bluish gray, but that'll be a great substitution when it does. The front leg should be a little thicker towards the top, but otherwise looks pretty good for a subassembly in which there's not a lot to work with in terms of connection points. I added these 2 round tiles on either side just to come up some of the trans rib of the lightsaber piece. It's a small thing, but I wish there was a way to cover up the trans rib in the front. The model has an optional stand that provides some support towards the rear of the Walker. The model can stand by itself and the legs have some limited posability, but there's a limited number of ways you can orient the legs and have it be stable. For long-term display, I definitely recommend using the stand. Bousker's ATAP is a very impressive model and will fit any Clone Wars fans' collections. It scales with the ATTE and indeed shares much of its design, and it's also compatible with Bousker's LAAT dropship model. Bousker's ATAP requires 336 elements and 1,674 pieces, while the small stand has 18 elements and 38 pieces. The Technic lift arm modified stud connector thin 1x4 part 2825 is very uncommon in dark bluish gray. I love coming across elements like this that are otherwise common except for certain colors. Anyway, this element only came in dark bluish gray in 2 small Technic sets in 2005. Luckily this looks fine in light bluish gray, which is much more common, so I'd change the color of this element to light bluish gray. This part is almost entirely hidden. The 2-tile round 2x2 with dark red Star Wars semicircles pattern, part 4150PX33 in tan, can be less common depending on where you are in the world. There are several stickered variants that may be more available and are likely less expensive. The most common one seems to be 4150PB198. The variant with the bottom stud holder will also work, part 14769PB019. For pricing purposes, I went with 4150PB198, but you should check in your region which one is the most economical. The wheel 18mm diameter by 14mm with axle hole, fake bolts, and shallow spokes, part 55982, remains very expensive and uncommon in flat silver. These briefly appeared on Pick-a-Brick about a year ago, but alas, they're gone again. I recommend changing this part to light bluish gray, or changing the part to the pinhole variant, part 55981, in dark bluish gray. Both of these are much more readily available and less expensive. For my pricing research, I went with 55982 in light bluish gray. The model calls for 2 Technic turntable 60-tooth bevel, part 18938. Even though the beveled turntables can be a little bit more uncommon and thus more expensive depending on where you live, I don't recommend substituting the newer straight-tooth turntable, part 88738. You can do this if you're okay with always using the stand, but if you want the walker to stand alone, you should definitely keep the beveled gears. The reason for this is that the straight-tooth gears don't reliably lock in place, even if you change the 2 Technic gear 12-tooth double bevel, part 32270, to something else, such as the Technic gear 12-tooth bevel, part 6589. And the teeth on the 12-tooth bevel, they just don't reach the gears on the turntable. On my model, I used 1 straight-tooth turntable and 1 beveled turntable to show you the difference. The one with the straight-tooth turntable barely catches, while the beveled turntable solidly locks in place. Using the 6589 gear is a little better on the straight-tooth turntable, but it's not solid enough to make me trust it to support the model, especially if I was using the same setup on the other side. So unfortunately, this is the difference between having to use the stand and being able to have it stand alone reliably. This is a pretty easy swap if you want to do it though, and I imagine switching to the straight-tooth turntable will save you a few dollars, particularly if you get them from Pick-a-Brick. Just know the risks ahead of time. The brick round corner 5x5 with slope 45 edge without studs, part 76795 in light bluish gray, are over $1 each. Again, these used to be on Pick-a-Brick, but at least in the US they are currently not available in light bluish gray. I think these look great, but if cost is an issue, I would change them to the part recommended in the alternative parts list, the brick round corner 5x5 without studs, part 24599 in dark bluish gray, and this is what I used in my pricing research. And then there are some elements that are just going to be a little expensive no matter what. The dark bluish gray 5x5 dish, part 6942, forms the top part of the front foot, while the Kylo Ren lightsaber blade, part 21699, is the only piece that will make the required connection in the front foot. The alternative parts list does offer some more affordable alternatives to some of the more expensive elements, and I definitely appreciate that this parts list has comments that helps builders know what pieces are being replaced. The alternative parts list offers the plain 1x1 round brick in black, part 3062, for the plant tree palm trunk, part 2536D. The palm trunk will run you about $3. This is purely an aesthetic thing, but I really like the shape it provides for the muzzle of the cannon here. I used the Brick Hunter extension to check the entire parts list against the Pick-a-Brick inventory. I do have an affiliate link that gives me a small percentage of the value of your purchase, so thank you in advance if you choose to use it. Pick-a-Brick orders over $35 ship for free, and if you spend more than $14 in the bestseller or standard categories, the handling fees are waived. I'll go over those results in the conclusion. Instructions for the ATAP consist of 609 steps for the walker and 16 steps for the stand. Each part or subassembly you add in each step is outlined in red against a light gray background. I didn't have any problems determining which parts you're adding in a given step with this color scheme. Boosker's instructions are almost always as close to perfect as I think an instruction set can be, and I only found one sequencing error in steps 552 to 553. The slopes need to go on before the cut corner tiles, otherwise you have to remove the tiles to connect the slopes. Other than that, I only had 2 observations. In steps 464 and 508, showing the connection points with a picture and some arrows might have made connecting this large subassembly a little easier. However, if you line it up with the front slope section, you can tell where this goes fairly easily. Finally, in step 172, I found getting these axles in very difficult. You have to apply a lot of force, so I recommend having a brick separator or something else handy to save your fingers. The number of pieces you add in each step is very reasonable, and the build goes at a good pace. Overall, I would say this model took me about 8 hours to complete with pre-sorting of the major elements beforehand. I think this model is suitable for intermediate mock builders with an advanced model or two already under their belt. This is a reasonably sturdy model overall, but it does have a few sections you need to be a little bit careful handling. The front leg isn't really designed to hold a lot of weight, so you really want as much weight on the back legs as possible, and this definitely limits the model's posability without the support stand. There are also some delicate parts at the top of the turret, which is the same design as on the ATTE, but anything that breaks here is reasonably easy to fix. Other than that, there's not really much that can come apart easily. I think the biggest risk with this model is in freestanding mode. Since the front leg provides some support but not much, the entire thing could fall forward. I don't think this would be catastrophic unless it fell entirely off your shelf and onto the floor though. While the cabin assemblies may come off, the rest of the walker is built very solidly. Bousker's ATAP is an excellent looking model, and even though it hardly gets any screen time in the prequels, I love having it on my shelf. It's a great build experience, it's reasonably solid, and it looks ready to start clomping its way through a battlefield. Again, without any substitutions, I was getting 6 stores and $180 without shipping and tax, or about $235 with shipping and tax. With my substitutions, my results were 6 stores and $159 without shipping and tax, or about $212 with shipping and tax. And then going full pick-a-brick, my pick-a-brick total was $188, which included tax but no shipping and handling. The remaining 20 elements I would have to get from Bricklink I could get from 3 stores for $30 without shipping and tax, or about $50 with shipping and tax, for a total of $238. So definitely a little disappointing with pick-a-brick, but I think the main issue was that I was getting some really weird prices for the beveled turntables, which pumped up the Bricklink price. I would definitely try to refine this a little bit if I was buying these elements, and I think this just goes to show that the Bricklink algorithm definitely isn't perfect. I also think there's probably a sweet spot ordering the more expensive elements from pick-a-brick, such as the newer 5x2 wedges and perhaps some of the other pieces that come in higher quantities, so I think getting this under $200 is realistic. Instructions for the ATAP cost $22.99 from BrickVault's web store. There will be a link to where you can buy those in the description below, and remember you can use the discount code CATS15 for 15% off if you haven't already used it. BrickVault runs sales fairly frequently, so keep an eye out for one of those if you're on the fence. My code does work even on sale items, and it's one-time use per email. Thanks as always for watching my review of Bousker's ATAP. If you built the model, you have something to share that I left out, or have some question about something I didn't cover, please leave your thoughts below in the comments. I'm very conscious that subscribers are earned and not deserved, so if you enjoy my content and want to see more, consider subscribing, leaving the video a like or a comment, or follow me on Instagram if you haven't already. Thank you, and I hope to see you back next time.